Please, my son. I haven't spoken to him in 5 years. If I don't call now, I never will.
Serena Hayes didn't ask questions. She handed him her phone. He dialed, fingers trembling, missing the keys.
Andrew!
His voice shattered.
It's Dad.
3 sentences, then he hung up. Then he vanished into the rain. Serena deleted the number, got on the bus. She had 16 hours of work behind her, $11 in her account, and a dying mother at home. One stranger's phone call meant nothing in a life that heavy. She was wrong, because that 2-minute call was about to change her life forever. Serena Hayes owned exactly one nice thing: a picture of her son holding a report card with straight A's tucked behind the cracked screen of her phone. Everything else in her life was borrowed, broken, or overdue. At 5:14 a.m., she was already dressed. Faded blue hospital scrubs, one shade away from gray. A name badge clipped to her chest. Serena H. Environmental Services. A polite way of saying she mopped floors and emptied trash cans at Mercy General Hospital. She laced up her sneakers, the left sole peeling from the toe held together by a strip of duct tape going on its 3rd week. She kept meaning to buy new ones. She kept not being able to. Down the hall, her mother Dorothy coughed. Deep, wet, the kind of sound that lived in the walls of apartment 4B like a second tenant. Serena stood still and counted. 3 coughs, a pause, then silence. The sleeping kind, not the other kind. She let out her breath and moved on. In the kitchen, she packed 2 lunches. Turkey sandwich for Elijah, her 14-year-old, no mayo because they were out. A protein bar and an apple for herself. She set both on the counter next to a stack of envelopes she hadn't opened. Electric bill, water bill, the one from the hospital with the red final notice stamp she could see through the paper. She'd deal with them tomorrow. She said that yesterday, too. Elijah's door was cracked. He slept with a textbook on his chest, a pencil loose in his fingers. Straight A's at Jefferson Middle. Serena carried that fact like a candle in a windstorm, carefully, desperately terrified it might go out. She locked the front door, walked 3 flights because the elevator had been broken since August, and stepped into Ridgewood Terrace. Brown brick buildings that looked tired in a way paint couldn't fix. Streetlights buzzing orange over cracked sidewalks. Nobody else out, just Serena and the cold. The 5:52 bus, 14 stops standing, clocked in at 6:15 with her mop already in hand. By 3 p.m., she'd cleaned 9 floors and 42 rooms. Not one person looked her in the eye. Not one voice said her name. By 4 p.m., she was at Lou's Diner, grease-stained apron tied over her scrubs. Different name tag, same tired hands, same woman carrying everything and asking for nothing. The rain started at 9 p.m. By 10:47, it was the kind of downpour that turned gutters into rivers and bus stops into shelters for anyone desperate enough to still be outside. Serena was desperate enough. She stood under the cracked plastic awning at the Ridgewood stop, arms folded, grease-stained apron balled up in her bag. Her scrubs were damp, her sneakers, the duct-taped ones, squished with every shift of weight. Lou had kept her late. A table of 8 walked in 5 minutes before close, ordered half the menu, and left a $2 tip on a $60 tab. She'd smiled and said thank you. That was the job. Now she just wanted the bus, the 10:55, 7 minutes away if it was on time. It was never on time. She heard him before she saw him. Footsteps, uneven, slow. The sound of someone walking without a destination. He came around the corner like a man the world had already forgotten. Old, white, 70, maybe older. A jacket that might have been brown once, now torn at the shoulder, dark with rain. Pants wrinkled and stained at the knees. White hair matted flat against his skull. A beard that hadn't been trimmed in weeks. His shoes had no laces. But it was his eyes that stopped her. Red-rimmed, swollen. The kind of red that comes from hours of crying, not minutes. He stood at the edge of the awning just outside the dry zone like he wasn't sure he was allowed under it. Serena watched him. 10:47 at night. Empty street. A man she didn't know. Every instinct her mother had drilled into her said, "Look away! Keep your head down! Mind your business!" He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a piece of paper. Wet. Folded so many times the creases had turned white. He unfolded it with trembling fingers and stared at a phone number, the ink already bleeding from the rain. Then he looked at her. "Excuse me, ma'am." His voice cracked on the second word. "I'm sorry to bother you. I need to make a phone call. Just one. I don't have a phone. I don't have anyone to ask." Serena's hand went to her pocket. The cracked phone. The one with Elijah's picture behind the screen. Her only nice thing. She looked at the man's hands, shaking. Not from cold, from something deeper. "Who do you need to call?" she asked. Not suspicious, just careful. His chin dropped. His voice fell to something barely above a whisper. "My son. I haven't spoken to him in 5 years, and I just found out—" He stopped, swallowed. "I'm running out of time. If I don't call him tonight, I never will." Serena didn't ask what he meant by running out of time. She didn't need to. She'd heard that tone before in hospital hallways from patients who'd just gotten the news that changes everything. She pulled out her phone and held it toward him. "Make your call." The old man took the phone like it was made of glass. He pulled out the wet paper and squinted at the number through rain-blurred ink. Tapped the digits one at a time. Missed the 7. Backspaced. Tried again. His thumb was shaking too hard to hit the right keys. Serena watched his fingernails split down the middle, black with grime, hover and miss. On the 4th try, he got it right. He pressed call and brought the phone to his ear. Serena took 2 steps back, turning slightly away. She stared at the rain hitting the pavement, each drop bursting white under the streetlight. She could still hear him. 3 rings. A click. A long pause. The kind of silence that happens when someone sees a number they don't recognize and almost doesn't answer. "Hello? Who is this?" The old man opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Rain dripped off his collar, tracing a dark line down the front of his torn jacket. One hand gripped the phone. The other clenched at his side until the knuckles went white. "Hello?" Impatient now. The voice was male, younger, used to being in control. "Andrew!" His voice broke on the name. 2 syllables carrying 5 years of silence, 5 years of empty rooms and unanswered questions. The other end went quiet. 3 seconds. 5. A car passed on the wet road behind them, headlights sweeping across the bus stop and vanishing. "Dad!" The old man pressed his hand over his eyes, his shoulders folded inward like something structural had finally given way. A sound came out of him, not a word, not a sob, something in between that Serena felt in her own chest. "It's me. I know I don't deserve this call. I know what I said at your mother's funeral. I stood in front of everyone and told you that you traded your mother for a business deal, that she died calling your name and you didn't pick up." His breath rattled. No father should ever say that to his son, even if it was true. Serena's jaw tightened. She stared harder at the rain. Her chest ached. She shouldn't be hearing this, but the bus stop was small and the old man's grief was enormous. "Dad, where are you? Are you okay?" "I'm at a bus stop. A stranger let me use her phone." He wiped his face with his torn sleeve. "Andrew, I went to the doctor last week. They found something. In my lungs, stage 3. They said I should get my affairs in order." His voice disappeared, swallowed by something bigger than words. "Dad, listen to me. Where are you exactly? I'm coming to get you right now." "Your mother would have wanted us to talk. She would have hated what I did. I was supposed to hold this family together and instead I shattered it." "You didn't shatter it, Dad. You didn't. Tell me where you are, please." The old man gave an intersection, 3 blocks north. "Don't move. You hear me? 40 minutes. Don't move." "I hear you, son." "I love you, Dad." The old man pulled the phone from his ear, held it in both hands, stared at the screen like it was a window into a room he thought he'd never enter again. The call timer read 2:14. He walked back to Serena and held out the phone. His eyes were wrecked, red, swollen, streaming, but something in them had shifted, something that looked almost like relief. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You have no idea what you just did." Then he turned and walked into the rain. No umbrella, no goodbye, just a man moving in a direction that finally meant something. Serena watched him until he disappeared around the corner. She looked down at her phone. Recent calls, unknown number 214. She pressed delete. The 10:55 pulled up. She got on, found a seat for once, rode home and didn't think about the old man again. She had bills to pay, a mother to keep alive, a boy to raise. One stranger's phone call at a rainy bus stop meant nothing in a life that heavy. The Mercedes pulled up to Ridgewood Terrace on a Tuesday morning, black and polished and completely wrong against the cracked sidewalk and brown brick. Two men in dark suits stepped out first. Then the back door opened and Victor Ashford unfolded himself from the car like he was stepping onto a stage. 6'2", broad shoulders carved by a personal trainer. 45 with the posture of a man who'd never carried anything heavier than a briefcase. Charcoal gray suit, 3 pieces, custom-tailored fabric that whispered money before anyone opened their mouth. Red silk tie, gold Rolex catching the morning sun, shoes polished to a mirror finish. His cologne reached the lobby before he did. Sharp, expensive, completely out of place in a building that smelled like mildew and boiled cabbage. Serena was on the second floor mopping. Faded scrubs, hair pulled back, bucket in one hand. She saw him before he saw her. His suit cost more than her rent. His watch cost more than her car if she'd had one. He moved through the hallway like he owned the place, which she'd learn in 3 minutes he technically did. He walked past her the way people walk past vending machines, aware of the shape, uninterested in the contents. His lawyer glanced at the wet floor, stepped around it, and didn't acknowledge her either. 46 residents packed into the community room. Flickering fluorescent lights, folding chairs that pinched. Victor stood at the front, hands in his pockets, scanning the room the way a man scans a menu he's already decided to send back. His lawyer spoke first. "Mr. Ashford is the majority stakeholder in Ridgewood Properties, LLC. He's here to discuss upcoming changes." Victor stepped forward, smiled. Teeth, nothing behind them. "I'll keep this simple. Market conditions have shifted. Effective 60 days from today, rent increases 40% across all units. Residents who find the adjustment difficult are welcome to explore alternative housing." The room went cold. A baby started crying in the back row. Mrs. Patterson, 2 kids night shift at the gas station, raised her hand. 40%? We can barely afford what we're paying now. Where are we supposed to go? Victor tilted his head. "That's not really my concern, ma'am. I'm a businessman, not a social worker." A murmur rippled through the room. Someone said, "That's not right," loud enough for Victor to hear. He didn't flinch. Martha Collins, 78 years old, 31 years in apartment 6A, stood up slowly. Her voice shook, but her eyes didn't. "You can't do this. We have leases. We have rights." "Your leases expire in 60 days. I'd suggest you read the fine print before you talk about rights." He straightened his cufflink. "This building will become Ashford Plaza, mixed-use commercial development, restaurants, offices, progress." He paused, looked around the room. "I'd suggest you start packing." An old man in the corner muttered, "This is our home." Victor heard it. He turned slowly, looked the man up and down, torn sweater, slippers, oxygen tube, and said, "Was your home?" He walked toward the exit. His eyes passed over Serena, still holding her mop, still in her faded scrubs, and moved on without stopping. Like she was wallpaper, like she was nothing worth remembering. He leaned toward his lawyer by the door, quiet but not quiet enough. "These people will fold. They always do." Serena's knuckles whitened around the mop handle. Martha sat back down, hands trembling. The baby was still crying. 46 people sat in silence, the fluorescent light buzzing above them like a timer counting down. Serena wasn't scared. She was furious. But fury without power is just noise, and Serena Hayes had never had power. Not yet. 3 weeks after the phone call at the bus stop, Serena found the envelope in her mailbox. It was thick, cream-colored, the kind of paper that felt expensive between your fingers. In the top left corner, Westbrook Academy established 1962. She almost threw it away. Junk mail dressed up in nice stationery. Probably a fundraiser asking people like her to donate money she didn't have to a school her son would never attend. She opened it on the bus. Read it twice. Then a third time because the words didn't make sense. Dear Ms. Hayes, we are pleased to inform you that your son, Elijah Hayes, has been selected as the recipient of a full academic scholarship to Westbrook Academy, effective fall semester. Tuition, books, uniforms, and transportation are covered in full for 4 academic years. This scholarship is funded by an anonymous donor and requires no application or repayment. Serena folded the letter, unfolded it, read it again, looked around the bus like someone might be watching, like this was a prank, and a camera crew was about to jump out from behind the seats. She called the school from the hospital bathroom during her lunch break, whispering into her cracked phone with one hand cupped over the mic. Yes, ma'am. The scholarship is fully funded and legitimate. Your son's enrollment has already been processed. He can start in September. But we didn't apply. How did you get his name? The donor provided it directly. That's all I can tell you, Ms. Hayes. She hung up, sat on the toilet lid, stared at the wall. Westbrook Academy, the school with the ivy-covered gates on the other side of the city. The school where kids wore blazers and carried laptops and went on to colleges that Serena couldn't spell, let alone afford. That school wanted Elijah. Someone wanted Elijah to have that. That same week, Dorothy's phone rang. Mrs. Hayes, this is Dr. Langford's office at Mercy General. Your file has been flagged for a new clinical trial, an advanced treatment for chronic pulmonary fibrosis. There's no cost to you. A benefactor has covered all expenses. Dorothy looked at Serena. Serena looked at Dorothy. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Mama, did you hear what she said? No cost. I heard. I just don't believe it. 2 miracles in 1 week. For a woman who'd spent 34 years learning that good things didn't happen to people like her, at least not for free, it felt less like luck and more like a trap. Good things always came with strings. Always. But Elijah's face when she told him about Westbrook, that was real. His eyes went wide, then wet. Then he hugged her so hard she felt her ribs creak. He was 14 and already taller than her, and for the first time in years he looked like a kid instead of a boy pretending to be a man. And Dorothy. The coughing eased after the first round of treatment. She ate a full plate of rice and beans on Thursday, the first full meal in months. She even laughed at something on TV, and Serena stood in the kitchen doorway and listened to that laugh like it was music she'd forgotten existed. But outside apartment 4B, the hallway was freezing. Victor had cut the hot water 3 days ago. Maintenance issues, the notice said. No timeline for repair. Residents showered cold or not at all. Martha Collins heated water on her stove and bathed with a washcloth. She was 78 years old. Small mercies inside, a slow strangling outside, and Serena standing in the middle holding both. Victor didn't just want them out. He wanted them to feel small enough to leave on their own. The inspection team arrived on a Thursday. 4 men in hard hats with clipboards writing down violations that didn't exist before they walked in. A cracked tile in the Patterson bathroom cracked for 6 years. An expired fire extinguisher on the 3rd floor. A window in Martha's apartment that didn't meet egress code, the same window she'd opened every summer for 31 years without a single complaint. The notices came 3 days later, bright orange, taped to every door like warnings on condemned houses. Building code violations mandatory. Compliance required within 30 days or units will be deemed uninhabitable. Martha came to Serena's door that evening, still in her housecoat, hands shaking. Not from cold this time, from fear. They're going to take my home, Serena. 31 years. My husband died in that apartment. My grandchildren took their first steps on that floor, and this man with his gold watch is going to erase all of it for a parking garage. 3 families moved out that week. The Simmons family with the twin boys. Old Mr. Garrett from 2C, who'd lived there almost as long as Martha, packed everything he owned into garbage bags and left without saying goodbye to anyone. Serena saw the bags piled at the curb the next morning, rain soaking through the plastic. Saturday night, Serena called a meeting. 40 people filled the community room, buzzing fluorescent light chairs that pinched. Some stood along the walls. A few brought their kids because they had no one to leave them with. The room smelled like coffee and worry and wet coats. Serena stood at the front in her hospital scrubs, name badge still clipped to her chest, sneakers still damp from mopping the oncology ward. She wasn't a leader. She'd never given a speech in her life. She didn't have a law degree or a single connection that mattered. She had a mop, a 14-year-old, and a mother on a breathing machine. But she opened her mouth and said it anyway. He wants us to disappear. He wants us to look at those orange notices and feel so small that we pack our bags and leave quietly. He's counting on us being too tired, too scared, too poor to fight back. She paused, looked around the room, met Martha's eyes, met Mrs. Patterson's. I say we stay. Silence for a beat. Then Martha stood, slowly, one hand on the chair back. I'm staying. Mrs. Patterson stood. I'm staying too. One by one, person by person, until 38 of the 40 people in that room were on their feet. 2 days later, Victor found out. He didn't come himself. He sent a man, gray suit, no name, polished shoes, who knocked on Serena's door at 8 p.m. while Elijah did homework at the kitchen table. The man smiled, polite, professional, the kind of smile that carries a blade underneath. Ms. Hayes, my client respects your passion. He really does. But he wants you to understand the full picture. You have a son who just got into a good school, a mother in a medical trial that could end at any time. Both of those things are fragile, very fragile. Do you understand what I'm saying? Serena understood perfectly, every word. This isn't a fight you can win, and the people who depend on you, your son, your mother, they'll be the ones who pay for your stubbornness. Not you. Them. He left. Serena closed the door, locked it, pressed her back against the wood and closed her eyes. Elijah looked up from his textbook. Mom, who was that? Nobody, baby. Just a salesman. She waited until he bent back over his homework. Then she walked to the kitchen, sat down at the table and stared at the stack of bills, the orange notice taped to the fridge, the picture of Elijah on her cracked phone. Her hands were shaking. For the first time in 34 years, Serena Hayes' hands were shaking. The knock came on a Wednesday evening. Serena opened the door expecting another one of Victor's people, another gray suit with another veiled threat. She had her speech ready. She'd been rehearsing it in the shower, which was cold now because the hot water was still under maintenance. The woman standing in the hallway was not what she expected. Mid-40s. Black hair pulled into a low knot. Navy blazer over a white blouse. No jewelry except a thin watch and small pearl earrings. She carried a leather briefcase, the kind that was expensive but didn't scream about it. She looked like someone who'd walked into courtrooms the way most people walk into coffee shops. Ms. Hayes, my name is Catherine Brooks. I'm an attorney. May I come in? Serena didn't move. Who sent you? A client who wishes to remain anonymous. I don't have money for a lawyer. You don't need any. My services are pro bono, fully covered. Catherine paused. May I come in? What I have to say involves your entire building. Serena let her in. Not because she trusted her, she didn't trust anyone who showed up unannounced in a blazer, but because she was out of options and she knew it. They sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Serena had looked at bills and shook. Catherine opened her briefcase, pulled out a folder, and set it between them. I've been retained to represent the residents of Ridgewood Terrace in the matter of the pending evictions and rent increases imposed by Ashford Properties, LLC. Serena stared at her. All the residents? All of them. Every unit. Full legal defense. No cost to anyone. Why? Nobody does this for free, not for people like us. Catherine met her eyes, steady, not offended, not defensive, just clear. Someone who remembers a kindness. The words hit Serena like a gust of wind she wasn't braced for. A kindness. She searched Catherine's face for a clue, any clue, but the lawyer gave nothing away. Somewhere deep in the back of her mind, a memory flickered. Rain, a bus stop, an old man with a torn jacket and trembling hands, a phone call, 2 minutes and 14 seconds. But the connection was too strange, too unlikely. She let the thought pass. "What exactly can you do?" Serena asked. Catherine pulled 3 documents from the folder. Victor Ashford filed building code violations to accelerate the eviction process. I've already reviewed the inspection reports. 7 of the 12 violations are fabricated, citing codes that don't apply to residential buildings built before 1978. 3 more are cosmetic issues that don't meet the threshold for uninhabitability. He also cut your hot water without filing the mandatory utility disruption notice with the city, which is a separate violation. Serena leaned forward. "You're saying he broke the law?" "I'm saying he broke at least 9 laws that I've found so far, and I've only been looking for 72 hours. Catherine closed the folder. "He's used this playbook before. Buy old buildings, harass residents out, demolish, rebuild, luxury. It works because people can't afford to fight back, but this time they can, because someone is paying for the fight." Serena sat back. Her mind was racing. 9 laws, fabricated violations, a lawyer who appeared out of nowhere funded by a ghost. This person, your client, they know about Victor, about what he's doing here. They know everything. And they chose us, this building, these people. Catherine looked at her for a long moment. Something softened in her expression, not pity, something closer to respect. "They chose you, Ms. Hayes, specifically you." Serena's breath caught. She didn't understand. She was a janitor who worked 2 jobs and rode the bus and carried duct tape in her bag for her shoes. Nobody chose people like her. Nobody even saw people like her. "I need to ask you one thing," Catherine said, standing up. "Are you willing to fight this? Because once we file, Victor Ashford will come at you with everything he has." Serena thought about Martha's trembling hands, about Mr. Garrett's garbage bags at the curb, about the man in the gray suit who'd stood in her doorway and threatened her son. "File it." Catherine's office was on the 14th floor of a glass building downtown, the kind Serena had only ever entered through the service entrance. This time she walked through the front. The security guard looked at her scrubs, looked at her face, and asked if she was there for a delivery. "I have a meeting with Catherine Brooks." He checked his list, found her name, waved her through with the expression of a man who didn't believe his own clipboard. The elevator was silent, no buzzing lights, no mildew smell, just polished steel and a mirror that showed Serena exactly what she looked like. Faded scrubs, duct-taped shoes on marble floors. She looked like a mistake someone had dropped into the wrong building. Catherine was waiting in a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows. The city spread below, the same city where Serena rode the bus and mopped floors. But from up here it looked like a different world. "Thank you for coming, Serena. There's someone who wants to meet you." The door behind Catherine opened. The man who walked in was not what Serena expected. And then, slowly, terribly, he was exactly what she expected. Old. White. 70-something. White hair combed neatly, now parted to one side. The beard was gone, clean-shaven, revealing a sharp jaw that might have been handsome decades ago. He wore a dark navy suit, well-fitted but not flashy. No Rolex, no silk tie. Just a white shirt with the top button undone. But he was thinner than she remembered. Gaunt, cheeks hollow. His skin carried a grayish undertone that Serena recognized from the oncology ward. She'd seen it on dozens of patients. The color of a body fighting something it was losing to. His eyes, though, those she knew. She'd seen them once before, red-rimmed, wrecked, desperate at a bus stop in the rain. Now they were clear, tired but clear, and warm. He stopped 3 feet from her and smiled, not happy exactly, but grateful, in a way words can't hold. "Hello, Serena." Her breath stopped. You're the man from the bus stop." "I am." She turned to Catherine. Catherine nodded. "Serena, this is Gerald Thornton, founder of Thornton Technologies." The name hit like a wall. Thornton Technologies. She'd seen it on buildings, on the news, on the side of the children's hospital wing she mopped every Tuesday morning. A company worth billions. And the man who built it had stood at her bus stop in a torn jacket, crying, begging to borrow her phone. Gerald sat down across from her. He moved slowly, carefully, the way people move when their body has started keeping score. "I owe you an explanation," he said, "and the truth." He folded his hands. They were still thin, still trembling slightly. "My wife Eleanor died 5 years ago. Cancer, the same kind that's in my lungs now. When she was dying, she called our son Andrew. He was in Tokyo, closing a $2 billion merger, the biggest deal of his career." Gerald's voice dropped. She called him. He didn't pick up. She died that night. Andrew flew home the next morning, but she was already gone. The conference room went silent. Catherine looked at her hands. "At the funeral, I stood in front of our entire family and said, 'You traded your mother for a deal.' I said it in front of his wife, his children, his colleagues." Gerald's jaw tightened. "I wanted him to hurt the way I was hurting, and it worked. 5 years, not one word between us." "5 years," Serena repeated quietly. "I left the company, left my house, walked away from everything. I thought if I disappeared, the pain would follow me and leave everyone else alone. It didn't work like that. It never does." He looked at her directly. "That night at the bus stop, I'd just gotten the diagnosis, stage 3. The doctor told me to get my affairs in order, and I realized the only affair that mattered was my son. I'd been carrying his number in my pocket for 3 years. 3 years without calling. And then you were standing there." His voice cracked. "You were exhausted. I could see it. Your shoes were held together with tape. You'd been working all day. You had every reason to walk away from a strange old man at 11 at night. But you handed me your phone. You didn't ask why. You didn't ask who I was. You just said, 'Make your call.'" Serena's eyes were burning. She pressed her lips together hard. "That call saved my life, Serena. Not the cancer, I'm still fighting that, but the silence. The 5 years of silence. Andrew drove 40 minutes to that intersection, found me standing in the rain, took me to his house. We talked until 4 in the morning. He forgave me. I didn't deserve it, but he forgave me." Gerald reached into his jacket, pulled out an envelope, and slid it across the table. "The scholarship for Elijah, the clinical trial for your mother, Catherine, all of it, that's Andrew. When I told him what happened, who helped me, he said one thing: find her. Whatever she needs, find her and fix it." Serena stared at the envelope. She didn't touch it. Her hands were in her lap, pressed together to keep them still. "You didn't need to do any of this," she whispered. "You didn't need to give me your phone." Something broke open inside her. Serena Hayes was not a woman who cried in front of strangers. She cried in hospital bathrooms and on late-night buses and in dark kitchens after midnight. But Gerald was looking at her the way no one had looked at her in years. Not like a janitor, not like a name badge, like a person. Like someone who mattered. One tear, then another. She wiped them with the back of her hand and straightened her spine. "There's one more thing," Gerald said. His voice changed, harder now, sharper. The voice of a man who had once run an $11 billion company and hadn't forgotten how. "I understand someone named Victor Ashford is trying to take your home." Serena looked at him. "Victor and I have history. 10 years ago, he was my business partner on a real estate deal. He manipulated the contracts, forced me out, and kept every cent of the profits. I let it go because I was too broken to fight." Gerald leaned forward. His eyes, the same eyes that had been red and wrecked at that bus stop, were now steady as stone. "I'm not broken anymore, and I will not let him do to your community what he did to me." The city council chamber smelled like old wood and floor polish. Rows of wooden benches faced a raised platform where 7 council members sat behind a curved desk. Microphones, water glasses, nameplates. The room was built to feel important, and it did. Victor Ashford arrived first. He walked through the double doors like a man arriving at his own coronation. Black suit this time, sharper than the gray, more expensive cut so precisely it looked like armor. Gold tie, gold cufflinks. The Rolex catching the overhead lights with every gesture. His shoes clicked against the hardwood floor, a steady, confident rhythm that said, "I own this room," before he opened his mouth. Behind him, 4 lawyers in matching dark suits, an architect carrying a scale model of Ashford Plaza under a clear acrylic cover, and a woman with a laptop already queued to a presentation. They took up the entire left side of the front row. Victor sat down, crossed one leg over the other, straightened his cufflink, smiled at the council members the way a man smiles at people he's already bought. Serena arrived 11 minutes later. She came straight from work, hospital scrubs, name badge still on, hair pulled back, still damp, not from the shower, from sweat. She'd mopped the surgical wing, clocked out 15 minutes early, and run 4 blocks to the bus. Her sneakers, still duct-taped, squeaked on the chamber floor. Behind her, Catherine Brooks in her navy blazer, Martha Collins holding a cane she didn't have 2 months ago, Mrs. Patterson with her 2 children because the babysitter fell through, and 23 other residents of Ridgewood Terrace who had taken time off work they couldn't afford to lose. They filled the right side of the room, quiet, nervous, holding folders Catherine had prepared. Victor glanced across the aisle. His eyes moved over Serena's scrubs, her shoes, her badge. He turned to his lawyer and said something that made both of them smile. The council chair called the hearing to order. Victor's team went first. The architect presented the model glass towers, retail spaces, underground parking, a rooftop garden. The presentation showed economic projections, 300 new jobs, 12 million in annual tax revenue, revitalization of a blighted area. Victor stood when it was his turn, buttoned his jacket, spoke without notes. This project represents progress. Ashford Plaza will transform an underperforming property into a thriving commercial hub. I understand change is uncomfortable, but cities don't grow by standing still. He paused for effect, looked at the council members one by one. The current residents have been offered generous relocation assistance. This is not displacement, it's evolution. He sat down. His lawyers nodded. The council chair wrote something on her notepad. Then Victor added one more line. He didn't need to. He just couldn't help himself. He half turned toward Serena's side of the room and said just loud enough for the microphones to catch, "With all due respect to the opposition, I don't think anyone here is qualified to discuss real estate development. This is a business decision, not a community bake sale." A ripple went through Victor's side. Smirks. The architect covered his mouth. On the other side, Martha's hand tightened on her cane. Mrs. Patterson pulled her daughter closer. Serena's jaw locked. She didn't move. Catherine stood. "Council members, if I may." She opened her folder. Calm. Precise. The kind of calm that comes from knowing exactly what's inside. Mr. Ashford's presentation is impressive, but it's built on a foundation of fraud. The room shifted. In the past 90 days, Mr. Ashford has fabricated 7 building code violations to accelerate eviction proceedings. He cited Code Section 4.12b, which applies to commercial structures not pre-1978 residential buildings. He filed 3 cosmetic issues as structural deficiencies. He cut hot water to 46 occupied units without filing the mandatory utility disruption notice, a Class B violation under state housing law. Catherine placed 14 documents on the council's desk, one at a time. The room was silent except for the sound of paper. Additionally, Mr. Ashford's company, Ashford Properties LLC, does not hold clear title to the land beneath Ridgewood Terrace. The original land deed contains a covenant restricting demolition without unanimous tenant consent, a covenant Mr. Ashford failed to disclose in his development application. Victor's smile disappeared. His lead lawyer leaned over and whispered something urgent. Victor waved him off. "This is absurd! I've owned that property for—" "You own the building, Mr. Ashford, not the land." The double doors at the back of the chamber opened. Gerald Thornton walked in. Slowly, he was using a cane now, his body thinner than the last time Serena had seen him. But his back was straight, his eyes were clear. Behind him, Andrew Thornton, tall, dark suit. The quiet confidence of a man who ran a billion-dollar company, carried a leather folder. Victor saw Gerald and went still. The kind of still that happens when a man sees a ghost he thought he'd buried. Gerald. The name came out flat, stripped of everything. Gerald didn't respond. He walked to the front of the room, nodded to the council chair, and took a seat next to Catherine. Andrew stepped forward. "My name is Andrew Thornton, CEO of Thornton Technologies. 3 weeks ago, our company acquired the outstanding land lease for the Ridgewood Terrace property. We are now the legal landholders. Mr. Ashford's development application is filed against land he does not control." Victor stood up. This is a conflict of interest. Gerald Thornton has a personal vendetta." "Sit down, Mr. Ashford." The council chair's voice was flat. "You'll have your chance to respond after we review the evidence." Catherine presented the full case. 14 violations of tenant protection law, fabricated inspection reports. She had the original inspector on record admitting he'd been paid to inflate findings. Utility disruption without notice, failure to disclose the land covenant, and the original partnership documents from 10 years ago showing how Victor had forged Gerald's signature to seize control of their joint venture. The hearing lasted 47 more minutes. Victor's lawyers objected 9 times. Every objection was overruled. The council voted unanimously. Application denied. Case referred to the district attorney for criminal investigation. Victor stood. His gold tie hung loose now. His jacket was unbuttoned. The Rolex was still there, still catching the light, but it looked different now. Less like a symbol of success and more like evidence. He walked toward the exit. As he passed Serena's row, he stopped. For the first time, he looked at her. Actually looked at her. The woman in scrubs, the janitor, the one he'd walked past like wallpaper. Serena looked back. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Behind her, Martha Collins was crying. Mrs. Patterson's daughter was asleep on her shoulder. 23 residents of Ridgewood Terrace sat in a city council chamber in their work clothes and their second-hand shoes, and they had won. 6 months later, Ridgewood Terrace looked like a place that had decided to stay alive. The brick was the same, still brown, still old, but the walls had been patched and painted. The lobby had new lighting. The elevator worked for the first time in 11 months. Someone had planted marigolds in the window boxes on the second floor. Serena never found out who, but she had a feeling it was Martha. The community room, the one with the buzzing fluorescent and the folding chairs that pinched, had been gutted and rebuilt. New tables, a small kitchen, a bookshelf stocked by donations that kept coming from places no one expected. A sign on the door read, "Ridgewood Community Center, funded by the Thornton Foundation." Serena didn't work 2 jobs anymore. Andrew Thornton had offered her a position at the Thornton Foundation Community Programs Coordinator. She'd said no the first time, and the second. The third time, Catherine Brooks sat her down and said, "Serena, this isn't charity. They need someone who actually understands what these communities go through. That's you. Take the job." She took the job. The salary was more than both her old jobs combined. She still didn't quite believe it. Elijah started at Westbrook Academy in September. He wore a navy blazer that fit him perfectly, the first piece of clothing he'd ever owned that wasn't secondhand. On his first day, Serena took a photo of him standing at the school gate with his backpack. She put it on her phone behind the cracked screen next to the old picture of his report card. 2 nice things now. He made the honor roll by October, joined the debate team by November. By December, his teacher called Serena to say he was one of the strongest students she'd seen in 15 years. Dorothy was responding to the treatment. The cough wasn't gone, but it was quieter, shorter, She ate full meals now. She laughed at things on television again, really laughed the kind that came from the belly and filled the apartment. On good days, she walked to the park at the end of the block and sat on the bench and watched the pigeons, which she said was the most exciting thing she'd done in years. Gerald came to Ridgewood every Saturday. He'd park at the curb, no Mercedes, just a modest sedan Andrew insisted on, and walk to the bench outside the community center. Martha would already be there. They'd sit together for an hour, sometimes two, talking about nothing in particular. The weather, the marigolds, how the elevator still made a sound like a cat being stepped on even after the repair. Gerald was thinner. The treatments were working, the doctor said. Caught it just in time, which was the kind of phrase that carried enormous weight when you knew how close just in time had been. He moved slower, used the cane more often, but his eyes were clear and his son called him every evening at 7, and that was enough. Victor Ashford was indicted on 14 counts: fraud, tenant harassment, forgery. His assets were frozen. His real estate license was revoked. The newspapers ran his photo next to the headline, "Developer accused of systematic tenant abuse." In the photo, he was still wearing the gray suit. The Rolex was gone. On a Thursday evening in early spring, Serena stood at the bus stop. The same cracked plastic awning, the same corner where she'd handed her phone to a stranger 8 months ago. She wasn't waiting for the bus this time, she'd driven here. Her car bought used, nothing fancy but hers. She just stood there for a minute, remembering. A bench had been added to the stop since then. Gerald was sitting on it. He looked up. "Still lending your phone to strangers?" Serena sat down next to him and smiled. "Depends on who's asking." 2 minutes and 14 seconds. That's how long the call lasted. Shorter than a commercial break. Shorter than the time it takes to brew a pot of coffee. Shorter than the walk from Serena's apartment to the mailbox downstairs. 2 minutes and 14 seconds, and it reconnected a dying father with his only son. It saved a 78-year-old woman's home. It put a 14-year-old boy in a school that would change the trajectory of his life. It gave a sick grandmother a treatment that let her laugh again. It stopped a man in a gold watch from erasing an entire community. All because a woman in duct-taped shoes with $11 in her bank account and nothing in her life that wasn't borrowed or broken handed her phone to a stranger and said 3 words: "Make your call." Gerald Thornton said it best sitting on that bench at the bus stop where it all began. "You didn't save me with money, Serena. You didn't save me with connections or lawyers or power. You saved me with 2 minutes and a cracked phone screen. You saved me because you saw a man who needed help and you didn't calculate whether he deserved it. You just helped." Serena had thought about that a lot since then. She'd thought about all the times she'd been invisible mopping floors while doctors walked past serving plates, while customers looked through her, standing in hallways while men in expensive suits treated her like furniture. She'd spent her whole life being unseen, and the one time someone saw her, really saw her, it was a man who had nothing left, a man even more invisible than she was. That was the thing about kindness that nobody talked about. It didn't require power. It didn't require money. It didn't require knowing who someone was or what they could do for you. It just required seeing someone, actually seeing them, and deciding in that small, tired, ordinary moment to help anyway. Serena Hayes didn't change the world. She handed over a phone at a bus stop because an old man was crying in the rain. That's it. That's the whole story. But sometimes the whole story is enough. So here's my question for you. What would you have done at that bus stop? 11 at night, raining. A stranger asks for your phone. You don't know him. You don't know what he needs it for. You're tired. You're broke. You've got your own problems stacked to the ceiling. Would you have handed it over? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to know. And if this story moved you, if it made you think about the small moments that change everything, hit that share button. Send it to someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next one.